our roll bar adjusters will be a tremendous tool for him on the oval track racing there, and being able to adjust the front and rear end of roll bars and the proper settings of those will be a big assist to him as he goes through a full fuel tank run from full to light and empty, giving him the ability to help adjust the car with that as well as the weight jackers.
It's always special to watch cars lap at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and today an extra treat, bonus activity. We normally wouldn't see anything in the month of May on the oval until May 15th after the weekend of road course racing, but a special circumstance with an active Formula One driver, the two-time world champion Fernando Alonso, getting his first taste, and it has gone swimmingly so far.
Doing shorter runs, obviously when we were going through the phases, his runs were a little longer to get him through those, and now that he's basically in free practice, they're running shorter laps with him, or shorter stints, so he's only running 2 and 3 laps at a time. They've already called him in for this one, so he'll be pitting again here. Another opportunity for him to practice entering the pits off of turn 4. You know, again, when we begin the event on May 15th, we don't use pit off of 4 until carb day. So that's another value of what he's getting an opportunity to do today, is practice basically race day entries, which for the rest of the group won't come until carb day and race day.
Brian Barnhart is joining us. He's the race director for the Verizon IndyCar Series and the Indianapolis 500. He'll lead the drivers' meeting for this event. We talk about all the things that are special with Indianapolis. The other thing that's most unique and that you're talking with the drivers about is the way we start this race. 3 abreast, 33, and the challenges, especially if you haven't done it before. It's one thing to be inside or outside, which is going to be new for him, to potentially be in the middle, going through 1 and 2.
Well, yeah, you say the 11 rows of 3 is a very unique start, and especially with a front straightaway that's only 50 feet wide, it is congested. All the draft as you basically get sucked along to turn 1 on an initial start is going to be another unique experience for him. And again, as much as you try and practice it and prepare for it, you really won't have any opportunity with it until that takes place for the very first time.
Pushing mid 221 miles an hour. We
not doing this, so I think making a guy comfortable. Brian, weigh in on this, but if you're comfortable right off the bat, other than somebody that's going to spook themselves, poor the late Brian Clausen, bless his heart, I think he ran so good that first year he was here, he was in the top 12 every day, and then qualifying he crashed on his 4th lap, and that really hurt his confidence. And then he came back a couple years later, the right rear tire fell off going into turn 3. I don't care who you are, that upsets your confidence, and you're suddenly.
And if it doesn't, you've got issues.
Right, right.
And it seemed like Brian had gotten comfortable by that last season.
Yep, Graham Rahal said last year he thought that he was really starting to get the hang of it.
Well, there have been a couple of Formula One drivers in the last 15 years that have come over and not made the race. Johnny Herbert, I think, was one. Scott Speed was a Formula One driver that tried it for a while and just decided that this, and it may have been that the car wasn't that quick.
Yeah, they didn't have an Andretti or a Penske.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different circumstance.
That helps also. But this guy's not going to come over here and just drive. You know, somebody just put a team together for 1 year, and he's going to give them we're expecting the best, and that's what he deserves.
Absolutely. And it's just a minor observation, but you can also tell a lot of these guys, rookies, veterans alike, you know, when they get out of the car, just watching him earlier today when he came in and got out, you watch what their breathing pattern is and whether they're breathing heavy, and, you know, he got out and looked like he had just walked right up to you and could have a conversation without a problem. The other thing you watch is when they're taking their helmet off, you see how much their hands are shaking when they're doing the chin strap. And serious, it's not that big a thing, but you can see some guys when they're getting out, they can't, their hands are shaking so bad they can't even find the chin strap to undo it. None of that. This guy's a cool cat and plenty comfortable.
So here we go again. Fernando Alonso back out on the 2.5-mile oval at Indianapolis. First on the track this morning at about 10:30 Indianapolis time, Eastern time. It is now nearly 2:40. He's done over 100 laps so far. And he put the scuff set back on, so we would presume he may not be running that hard at this point. Although they did say we want to compare lap times, what it's like in the mixture,
wheel two.
which is wheel 2. That's their rich mixture. And when we hear wheel 5, that means he's going into fuel saving mode.
It was interesting, Eric's comment, you'll feel how much that naturally slows the car down. That's
When he goes to 5.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing, do you remember when you started in IndyCar? I don't remember.
Did you see that bird right there? There's
Yeah.
a bird on the band. You saw him react and respond to it. He moved the car left and probably startled him a little bit out there.
Some guys have been hit before by birds.
Yeah. That looked like a lot different exit to 1 from what he had been running earlier in the day. Still touching bottom a little bit there at the exit of 2. There's one little bump that goes across, and then there's another one right as you enter turn 3, and they're really strange. They're developed in the last couple of years around here, and they're almost like little speed bumps back there at the beginning and end of the back straightaway.
But that's not something you can't pound that out, can you? I mean, you can't.
No, and we've been out looking at it. It's really strange. It's almost like there is an irrigation system to the grass on the inside that crosses over into the track, and I don't know if both places, if it's, if that's come up to the top a little bit or what. But there's just little bitty speed bumps there at the exit of 2 and entrance of 3. Which was another interesting comment after Marco's runs this morning, and I'm sure, with Alonso watching and he sees the sparks come out a couple of times, that was one of the first questions I heard him ask Marco.
And you go to the left on the weight jacker if you want to try that.
So now he's going to wheel 5, so he's leaning down. This is fuel saving mode, and what Eric was talking to him about, how it will naturally slow the car down, and this is what he'd be using when he's in race traffic trying to save fuel.
And because of the draft that you get in the race in traffic, you can lift sooner and still not lose position and just use that draft to your advantage. And that's the key, is the smart guys at this know when you can do that without losing any pace.
Well, and at Indianapolis, when you've got, 7, 8 pit stops planned throughout the race, if you can run 1 or 2 laps longer on each of your fuel loads, depending on, when cautions come out and how it goes, that can make a huge difference at the end of the event for sure.
In last year's race, our co-worker Townsend Bell, who was a race leader early on, made contact with Ryan Hunter-Reay in the pits, but he still contributed mightily to that win because he was a lap down running right in front of Alexander Rossi, and that helped Rossi save the fuel that he needed.
Which is a little bit of the process they're half replicating now with his fuel settings and what they're teaching him and helping him with here, although they don't have the car in front to pull him along.
This is essentially the car that Townsend Bell ran. It was the 29 entry with Andretti Autosport last year. So good for Townsend. It took a 2-time world champion to replace him with the team.
Well, yellow for moisture.
Okay, we're yellow now for moisture.
Which we've been expecting, and this is actually later than what we feared. We were hearing this morning 2 o'clock. It's 2:45.
And you can see it on the camera lens there. That camera's in turn 4, and you can see the moisture gathering on the lens now.
I haven't seen the radar in a while, but I saw it around noon. It was very ominous.
Saying it's some rain somewhere on the track.
So now he has experienced everything. At 218 or 19 miles an hour, and it starts raining a little bit. And not only has he had the opportunity to experience raindrops, we saw just a moment ago some of the area wildlife. Whoa, that'll catch your attention.
Probably didn't do much for the bird either.
So we'll sit and wait for a moment and see what the weather does and see what the team's plan is. The radar, we are right on the edge. It could go south of us, it could hit us, but there's something in the entire area of central Indiana, but there's a much darker blob that is coming near Speedway, so that is the fun with Indiana weather. I can just accurately say as anyone else, it might rain, it might not rain.
Yep.
And regardless of what happens on track, we're still going to hear again from Fernando Alonso. Robin has already talked with him a couple of times today, but his formal press conference with the assembled media is coming up, and you can see it right here streaming live.
I was going to ask Brian, when do you remember fuel becoming... When's the first time fuel became... I mean, Bill Vukovich and Jack McGrath didn't save fuel, and I don't think Mario did, and Parnelli, and AJ his first couple years. Is it just because the cars have become so more technical? The fuel cells are smaller. I think I said that to Mike Hull, and he goes, nah, it's got nothing to do with the fuel cells.
I think it has a lot to do with all of it. I think as much as anything else, Robin, to be honest with you, I think it's because of the increase in the depth of competition. You know, you didn't have to save fuel. When the event started, you could figure out pretty quickly there's one or two really good cars today, and that's who you're racing with. You know, we were watching something earlier, and Mark Donohue won by 3 minutes.
Yep.
You don't have that environment now. It's so much deeper in the competition and the competitiveness of the field. It's everything now. I think everything's amplified. The car setup, the fuel is just a component of that, and I think all of it increases. The comments and topics that you touched on are part of it, and I just think the increase in competition adds to it.
Just look at the qualifying speeds over the years. You look at a box score from the 70s and the wide range from slowest to fastest, and now we're talking, you know, sometimes 4 or 5 miles an hour, maybe 7 or 8 miles an hour. So there's not that much difference in a car that is relatively slow. You take one less pit stop than everybody else, you can't make that time back up on the track.
And you know, at IndyCar, we do take a look at the fuel mileage of what the engine manufacturers are producing, and try and create a race that isn't a fuel mileage race. We haven't been as successful at that sometimes, whether that's because we may or may not be getting accurate information from the manufacturers. But the one thing we don't really like to see is that when we drop the green flag and start the race, guys go to a fuel-saving mode. At lap 1, when we take the green and you hear them say wheel 5 or wheel 7 or whatever, that's not where you want to be. That being said, you can't prevent an event turning into just like last year's race.
Last year, you couldn't help that.
Depending on when the last caution comes out, you always have the chance that it can become a fuel mileage race. Yep. But that's one thing. Knowing that it's a fuel mileage race, when they go to fuel saving mode in lap 1, those are the ones that I think we need to do a better job of and change the distance of the event from the outgo, whether you add or subtract laps, to the point where that's not the MO. When you drop the green, you go to fuel saving. If it happens to come out to a fuel mileage race because the caution came out with 35 to go, that's one thing, and you can't control that.
The other thing is, what's tough on television is that you have to talk about it because it's part of the thing. But the last thing a race fan wants to hear is they're saving fuel. Except then a guy like Scott